Yonkers Public Schools are incredibly important to me, and I can just look in row 4 to tell you why. I'm a boy goes to Pearls, and to me, it's an incredibly good opportunity. It was a great opportunity for my daughter as well, because the teachers there are terrific. Now, what do we do to get them better? First and foremost, it's about funding, and it's about allocation of the funds that are already there. School funding formula has been fatally flawed for years. The other cities in the state, Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse, get a tremendous amount more percentage-wise than the city of Yonkers. That is absolutely and completely unfair. The citizens of Yonkers deserve better. And the first thing I will do as City Council President is not only go personally to Albany to make sure that this happens, but to word a very strong resolution, far stronger than the very weak resolution that passed this year, encouraging the state to fix the formula. Second, finding ways to get the money back in the school system. We have $30 million in this year's budget towards busing, a couple of million towards textbooks. That's a ludicrous proportion. It shouldn't be that way. So from my perspective, we need to get back to neighborhood schools to allow us to save that money. And there are kids who are going to the Yonkers Public Schools who shouldn't be there in the first place. They're here from Mount Vernon, they're here from the Bronx. Hire a couple of people to find out who actually lives where and save the money. With a budget of $480 million, that's almost $20,000 per student. We can save that money. Now, when it came to the...
I'm going to follow up with you. Okay, well, your second part's going to be just a little bit different.
Oh, okay, good.
We're going to go back to specifically, if you were to become the next City Council President, taking out the 30-year battle for the budget, what would be some of the things that you would do to increase the educational experience for our students?
To me, it's about partnering with outside corporations, number one, and number two, with various governmental agencies and civic programs. When I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, for instance, I didn't just put away the bad guys. I brought what was called the Adopt a School program to Bushwick High School, which was over 90% Black and Latino. Okay? I brought it there, along with my colleagues, to demonstrate that there were futures outside of the kind of gang activities these kids were being recruited to that they could aspire to. It's a question of getting partnerships in an additional program. When I was in law school, I taught what was called the Streetwalk program at a high school also in Brooklyn, where I went to school. Simply because, again, I wanted to teach these kids personally what things were out there for them. My entire life, I've been involved in teaching, mentoring. I've been an assistant dean at a law school. It's incredibly important that we bring additional programs from the outside in to enrich the curriculum of our students.
2 years ago, Mayor Philip Amicone endorsed the U.S. Conference of Mayors Climate Protection Agreement, which means that Yonkers must reduce citywide emissions 7% below 1990 levels by 2012. 2012 is right around the corner. Please name 3 specific steps that you believe the city should take toward the reduction of its carbon footprint and explain how you would enforce these measures. Please give us as well your opinion on sustainable development and the economic viability of the kind of sustainability planning that would lead to the required U.S. conference reductions. Castro-Blanco.
Green policies are incredibly important. Making sure that we comply with our obligations, the obligations that we have already signed on to, is important. In this economic climate, I don't know whether this city is going to be able to do that. I don't know whether we're going to be able to make that 2012 deadline. I would like to hope that we would, but I doubt that we can. And the reason I doubt that we can is because if we're looking at the development in downtown Yonkers, if we're looking at what's going on right now, we have to be able to make these development projects economically viable to proceed. Right now, after extraordinary delays, the Economic Development Plan has finally been approved in its early stage. The LDA was signed a week ago, 3 weeks before the election. Now, from this point on, comes the real fun, because the devil's in the details. We need to be able to make sure that the plans as they go forward do, as much as is possible, incorporate the kinds of construction techniques and the kind of planning that will allow us to help get that sustainable growth and also help us comply with what it is we've already promised to do. That being said, we have to make it economically viable, and we have to make it a place where people can afford to live. So we can't price people out of the deal. Again, it's time. There's no magic bullet out there. We just have to work together.
I was pleased to support both the U.S. Conference of Mayors Agreement and the Green Policy Task Force. And the Council twice funded a Director of Sustainable Growth and Development who was supposed to take the lead from the administration's point of view. Because how can you reduce your carbon footprint by 7% if you don't know what it is already? And we identified someone that we thought the administration should hire. They got into a bickering battle over a couple $1,000s. She went to work for the city of Newark. I saw her at a conference a couple of months later, and then again a year later. I asked her how much money she had brought in for the city of Newark in green grants, and she said over $3 million. So because of a couple $1,000s, we lost out on some of that money. Now we do have a person, Sharon Ebert, who's working very hard for the administration on some of the green stuff, and there is green grants available from the federal government, some of which will do the function of that. I hope they put that to go. In terms of what we reduce, we have to reduce both emissions from buses, which I talked about earlier, as well as from buildings. Because believe it or not, there is more carbon emitted from buildings than from vehicles in this country. And we have these standards poised to be adopted at this point. And in the SFC deliberations, we put language in that they would have to build to certain standards that would satisfy LEED building, because we have some great examples here in Yonkers that are economically viable, like the 66 Main Street, which is geothermal. The last thing is historic preservation, which to me is a big part of sustainable growth, because the energy in the brick is already been built. It's there.
Mr. Castro-Blanco? Okay. Mr. Lesnick just alluded to the fact that, in fact, as part of the land disposition agreement on the SFC project, the SFC developers had committed to a certain level of sustainable development. And I wondered if you'd like to comment on whether or not you thought that they were doing that, if they would have been willing to do that, if that was economically sustainable, as opposed to environmentally sustainable.
Well, I trust that they made a cogent decision when they did that. I mean, if you're signing a contract that's going to be part of the $1.5 billion development project, and you're going over it with your lawyers and your finance people, I would expect that if they sign their name to it and committed to that, that they're going to live up to it. Now, again, let me say this. All development and construction projects are in constant flux. Change orders are the watchword from the beginning to the end. These are fluid and dynamic projects, and they have to be to recognize the realities going forward. There are compromises all over it. Certain things have to give a little bit here and there. They'll give in order to make sure that we finally get the downtown area where it needs to be. We need to build, or we're going to go broke.
Time. I have one here.